Hi, I'm Adrian Rodriguez, and we are going to investigate the recovery of the Antarctic ozone hole. We are going to talk about the cause of the ozone hole, the Montreal Protocol, the decline of ozone-depleting gases, the current size of the hole, and then we'll use all of that information to determine if the ozone hole is healing. What is the ozone hole? The ozone hole is extremely low levels of ozone over Antarctica. It occurs during late winter and early spring. But why is it over Antarctica? Low temperatures create special clouds that are called polar stratospheric clouds. And in these clouds, reactions occur that convert reservoir forms of odd chlorine into reactive forms, catalyzing ozone loss. These clouds also remove HNO3 from the ozone layer, and HNO3 reacts with ClO. So this means that these polar stratospheric clouds make reactive ClO remain active in the atmosphere for longer, increasing ozone destruction. Air transport is slow between the polar and surrounding stratosphere. This is because of high wind speeds in the polar vortex that surrounds the poles. This slows circulation in and out of polar regions. This makes the fact that reactive halogen gases coming from the tropics even worse, because it traps them in the polar regions. And this is bad because they're stuck there, because there's no natural removal processes near the surface in Antarctica. The first steps towards fighting the ozone hole was the Montreal Protocol. It was signed in 1987 by the US, and it was the first treaty to be signed by all countries of the world, and all 197 of them. It was successful in having all countries agree to gradually reduce the amount of ozone-depleting substances that were being emitted into the atmosphere. This means that within the next few decades, compounds like chlorofluorocarbons would be no longer be emitted within each country. Chlorofluorocarbons are especially harmful because they are broken down by UV radiation and they release chlorine, which catalyzes ozone destruction. Since then, NOAA data tells us that the amounts of chlorine in the atmosphere, released in large part due to chlorofluorocarbons, has been decreasing. We see that starting around 1987, the amounts of chlorine in the atmosphere continues to increase. This is because there is a large amount of chlorofluorocarbons still in the atmosphere at this point, and they're still being broken down and releasing chlorine. However, as the regulations start to take effect, we see that the chlorine levels level off at around 2000 and begin decreasing. We see that there are two curves on this graph, the green curve and the blue curve. The green curve represents chlorine in Antarctica, and blue is in the mid-latitudes. It's shocking to see that Antarctica has significantly higher concentrations of chlorine than the mid-latitudes. This is because of the reasons we discussed in the first slide, the polar vortex and polar stratospheric clouds, which are unique to Antarctica. The current size of the hole is much smaller than it was in 2006, where the largest hole ever recorded was found. You can see the hole in October 2017 on the right. It is much less purple than the one on the left, and in addition, its area is much less. This means that the ozone hole this means that ozone is thicker now, and the ozone hole is smaller. Is the ozone hole healing? Analyzing NASA data, we see that chlorofluorocarbon levels are falling, and that reduces chlorine levels, which reduces the amount of chlorine-catalyzed ozone destruction. Temperature is increasing, reducing the number of polar stratospheric clouds where chlorofluorocarbons release chlorine. Low ozone levels in 2015 made it unclear if it was healing, but it turns out that low ozone depletion then was caused by a volcano eruption. The most conclusive evidence we see is that the ozone hole has shrunk over 4 million square kilometers since the year 2000. In conclusion, because chlorine levels have fallen after regulation from the Montreal Protocol, and due to rising stratospheric temperatures, which reduces the number of polar stratospheric clouds, the ozone hole is healing.